Hey everybody, welcome to week 11. This week we're going to talk about middle adulthood. And middle adulthood kind of is where I find myself right now. I know a couple of you find yourself probably feeling like that too. I would say it's 30s to 50. So about 20 years of our life, believe it or not, is in middle adulthood, even maybe a little longer, maybe up through your 60s or up until you're 60. And so we're going to talk about what really that looks like. So I'm going to, let's see if I can get to here. I'm going to watch this quick video.
Hey guys, today I just wanted to do a more serious video about a topic that I've been thinking a lot about lately, which is getting older. I am 33 right now, which is a sort of weird age to be. You're not middle-aged, but you're not that young anymore either. According to my YouTube stats, the majority of my audience is around my age, or maybe 10 to 15 years younger. So I figured you guys might get something out of hearing what I have to say on the topic today. Either it's a good view of the future, or something you can relate to in your friendship. So here are 8 truths about getting older. These are not necessarily things that I personally have experienced myself, but I do think that they're going to be pretty universal experiences for people in their late 20s or early 30s. The first truth about getting older is that your parents get older too. It seems obvious, but it is easy to forget. When you're young, there's this struggle line separating you as a kid from your parents or adults. But eventually,
So I really like that video. Just besides the fact that he keeps on saying a boot, I love Canada for whatever reason, but or how Canadians talk sometimes. But I love the idea because again, I think I'm here already. I'm in midlife personally, and so I will just tell you from my perspective. He is spot on. The things he talks about what midlife looks like for us. And so we're going to break that down just into a couple of different categories like we have every other stage. So we're going to start with physical development. Um, yeah, some people just think this whole getting older thing stinks. And it does, but you know what? There's some really good parts that go to with it too. Like, I have a lot more life experience, and so I don't freak out as much as somebody that's younger might freak out over something. In other ways, I might freak out more about certain things because maybe I view a bigger picture. But physical changes, you know, seriously, I had to get these like last year. And like right now, looking at my screen, I am having a hard time. Like I can read the words because they're kind of big on my screen. But yeah, no, the glasses help because basically my lens is becoming less flexible. And so for reading, I need some reading glasses. Years ago, I already had what they call astigmatism. I can't see far distances, like the detail of it. And so I needed those glasses already, but I really hardly ever used those. My sight was still pretty good. It was just if I were trying to read far away, like watching TV from like my kitchen table was a little farther if I were trying to read something. If I'm not trying to read, it's fine. But it started getting more and more difficult, I found. And then about 2 years ago, I noticed when I went to read something, like I'd have to start doing this, like putting the book closer and trying to find the right distance for me to be able to read it. Because again, my lenses are not as flexible as they once were. And apparently that's just going to get worse. Our hearing declines in midlife for about 13% of the population. Mine decreases. Part of that is inherited. My dad's side of the family all is hard of hearing. My dad and my uncle both have hearing aids. Part of that, though, is also because they did not take care of their ears. They worked construction and did not use ear protection for all those years. And so that definitely damages it. I listened to really loud music as a teen and in my 20s. So I'm sure I have some permanent damage because of that. Other changes in physical development, of course, menopause. Um, do not make fun of your mom's hot flashes. They are a real thing. I'm just going to tell you that. We also have what's called perimenopause. Now, some of you probably have not ever heard of that. Honestly, I had not heard of it until I started working with women who were going through it. It's basically before your body goes into menopause. It can be in perimenopause, which has a lot of the same symptomology, except for you are still ovulating and having usually regular periods and cycles. But that perimenopause can last like 10 years. So it takes a while. Um, Really fast, we're going to watch some funny videos.
And it's far from perfect. Trust me. She started menopause about 6 years ago. So that's my experience. Sometimes I meditate about it, but all these
So that's a really funny video because it's kind of true, which is a little scary. But so what can we do about that though, right? Well, one way is to do what they call hormone replacement therapy. And so I want you to watch this really quick video about that and just how you can maybe deal with menopause naturally. Other kinds of physical issues that you have to deal during midlife, sleep problems. Again, our bodies start hurting a little bit more, and so you just don't sleep as long or as hard for as long. Like for myself, I know right now I've been struggling waking up about 3 a.m. every night, and it just takes me a little while to get back to sleep. Osteoporosis, which is basically breaking down the calcium of the bones, is starting to disintegrate a little bit, and that can cause pain in your joints and your back. Cardiovascular disease. You heard that one video talk about increased blood pressure, maybe problems with cholesterol. In your 40s, they start testing you for those things, and maybe even starting medication to lower your cholesterol. Cancer. We start, as we get older, we become more susceptible to certain kinds of cancer. And so they want to start doing, breast exams more frequently once you turn 40. The big 50 is time for your first colonoscopy. That's a scary one. If you don't know what that is, it's where they send a scope up your anus and look at your colon. They do put you out for that, so no worries. I guess the worst part is the preparation. They give you this big jug of stuff you have to drink, and you want to stay home the night before because it is a cleanse in the most significant definition of that word. It is a definite cleanse. The best way, though, I think that people deal with this is knowing their body, figuring out what is your normal, what is not your normal, and trying to be aware as you go through that. How about cognitive development? How does that change? Well, let's talk about, there's two different kinds of intelligences. First, we need to define fluid intelligence and crystallized intelligence. Fluid intelligence is information processing abilities such as short-term memory, the ability to discern relations between visual stimuli, and the speed of the synthesizing new information. Okay, that just sounds like a complicated definition. Let me tell you really what it is. It is fluid information is information based on experience that you might have, things that you've learned by doing. So maybe like, okay, weird example. Right now, I'm kind of in the middle of teaching my boys how to cook. This one way we're keeping them entertained is they get to help out with dinners. I realized that was something I forgot to do while they were teens, like in high school. And so now we're doing it because we're stuck home together. And so there's one, I have a I have 4 stove things on my stove, 4 burners. There you go. 4 burners on my stove. Well, one of them, for no reason, will get super hot. I mean, it has to be turned on, but if you turn it on past like medium heat, it will just automatically go to high ever so often. And you have to turn it all the way off in order for it to cool down. Well, I know this because of experience. That's not how it's supposed to work. I know it because this is what's been going on with my oven for a while. Crystallized intelligence is an accumulation of persons' culturally based knowledge, language, and understanding of social conventions. It's basically factual knowledge. It's things that you've learned over time, like in school. So we're going to do a quick little video about fluid versus crystallized intelligence. Oops.
It's not all bad news. Research shows that some parts of the brain actually influence each one is controlled by a different
So we are going to do a little quiz for you to help you determine whether you understand the difference between fluid and crystallized intelligence. Okay? So name that intelligence. So name different ways to use a tire. Is this considered fluid intelligence or crystallized intelligence? Well, if you guess fluid intelligence, you were absolutely correct. How about the next one? If you are at a four-way stop, which car has the right-of-way? Is this fluid intelligence or is this crystallized intelligence? It is crystallized intelligence. Number one, it's something that it's knowledge that you've been given in the past, and then also implementing that with actual experiences. Okay, if a tree falls in the forest, does it make a sound? Is it crystallized intelligence or is it fluid intelligence? If you answered fluid intelligence, you are correct. Name different ways to use a tire. Is this fluid intelligence or crystallized? This would be fluid intelligence. Name the tallest mountain in the United States. By the way, I believe that would be Mount Whitney. But is this, well, no, maybe not. I think it's Whitney. Anyways, name the tallest mountain. Is this fluid or is this crystallized? It is crystallized. Here's a good one. How many rides are in Disneyland? It can be either, and this is why. There are 55 attractions within Disneyland Park. 36 of them are considered rides. What constitutes a ride? And lastly, do we include Disney California in that? And so as you can see, it's not just through experience, there's just a lot of different things we have to put into consideration. So the other things that take place during this is around our cognitive development is our job peaks and our job losses. I want you to watch this quick video of the middle.
Here's the thing.
Oops. I have to tell you, I love that episode just because I think it's a good reminder for all of us. As you guys are especially just starting things out, you're going to college right now, you're learning things, and the synapses are firing all the time in your brain. But when you go into like a new job in your career someday, it's going to hit you this total insecurity of, I have no clue what I'm doing, and I'm afraid somebody's going to find out. And that is like seriously one of our biggest fears. Here's the secret that nobody ever talks about. None of us started out knowing what we were doing. And that's one of those things that with age, we get a better understanding almost every day with how to do life. I will tell you, parenting is the same way. I know a lot of parents, I mean, I remember having my first baby and like looking at him and going, I have no idea what makes you happy or what makes you tick. That came from experience and just being forced to do life every day with a baby. And it continues on. I still am like, how do you keep teenagers occupied in the middle of a quarantine? If I right now took a video of my house, you'd be going, oh my word, did you get robbed, Michelle? No, my kids are making a movie about the apocalypse, and so they literally turned my house upside down, and it looks like I have like a thief has been here. They've told me it will be cleaned up by the end of the day, so I'm trusting that. But again, it's always kind of like just trying to figure it out one day at a time, and eventually you figure out, okay, I've got this part figured out. Like that much of life is figured out right now. And then later on, you go, okay, I have that much figured out. And that process just continues as we get older and as we have more experiences. So, information processing, one thing that does happen during this time is the processing speed declines in our brain. We just are slower at picking up things sometimes. I'm not extremely slower. I'm not 100 years old, but sometimes I'm like, just wait. Okay, just slow down what you're saying so I can process it. And that's just something because, again, I know people say they can multitask. That is actually a lie. What we do is we can actually switch our attention from one thing to another really quickly. Well, as time goes on, we're able to do that less quickly. We also have lower reaction times to sensory stimulation. Again, this might be just by milliseconds, but if you're driving right now, when you drive, if a car pulls out in front of you or if somebody steps out in front, very quickly you have a reaction time that should be really quick. As you start getting older, that just slows down a bit. Again, not a huge amount, but just a bit. Attention and memory declines. The ability to focus on relevant and ignore irrelevant. Ability to switch attention between two sources. Again, all of this declines. Okay, so the next thing we're going to look at is actually emotional and social development during middle adulthood. So changes in self-concept and self-acceptance. I will tell you one thing that they say happens is contentment with yourself becomes higher. We're no longer striving to become somebody that we're not, and we actually become flexible in our goal development. Let me see if I can kind of explain that to you a little bit. Okay, so right now where most of you are is, again, you're still trying to figure out life and who you want to be and what you want to be. And at some point, you kind of get some of that dialed in. You figure out mostly who you're not going to be and what you're not going to be able to do. I'll give you an example from my life. When I was a child, I lived on a ranch, and we had to move out of that ranch when I was about 7 years old. We moved into town. It was owned by my grandfather, and he decided to sell it. So we moved, and in my head, I always thought I will get back to that ranch someday. That never happened, and it wasn't even going to be that ranch, but it just to ranch life. When I was in my mid-30s, I was married. I had 2 kids. I had this aha moment one day when I went, you know what? That's never going to happen. I think I need to let go of that dream for several reasons. Number one, I've turned into a city girl. I totally respect ranch life, but I have terrible allergies, and so I don't think ranch life is for me. I love animals. again, I have terrible allergies. Ranch life is not for me. So it was kind of letting go of that. And there was a little bit of grief with that, but there was also just a reality of that's not who I am. And so embracing who I am and the different potentials I have in that. Um, and that has just kind of increased as time has gone on. So I hope that is helpful in explaining that. Let's see. Have you ever heard of a midlife crisis, though? It is feelings of meaningless turmoil, confusion, dissatisfaction, and disappointment with work and family life. It can also be a fear of aging and a fear of death. This is actually somewhat a myth. Most middle adults actually never experience this crisis. I think I had a crisis, but it wasn't like this. My crisis had to do more with like, what is my purpose? But it wasn't like I've enjoyed my work. I've enjoyed my life. And so I can't say that that was it. I also haven't really feared aging and death. Not something I really embrace, but um, it's something that was just okay. This is just a fact of life, right? And I think that's the way most of us take on midlife. Again, once in a while, you have people who they are in a job they hate. Actually, one of your extra credit assignments that I will give you this week is it's you can watch the movie City Slickers, and there's some questions online for you to answer. Unfortunately, you will have to purchase the movie. It's like $15, $14.99. It can be purchased on Amazon. I think Amazon. I know YouTube had it, and Vudu had it. I'm sure Hulu probably has it. Some of those other streaming services. But unfortunately, we were going to watch it in class, but that's not a possibility now. So, so that's why it's extra credit. So if you want to do that, you can and answer these questions. It is a fantastic movie. Just a little like case synopsis. It's these three best friends who every year for their birthdays they do an adventure, and what they're all dealing with a different kind of conflict in their lives, relationally in one way or another. And so finally they go on a cattle drive and they have to face it's one of their 40th birthday, and they have to face what their truths are and what their conflicts are instead of avoiding it through these adventures. So it really is a fun movie. It has can't think of the guy's name right now, Billy somebody, but it is really fun. Another movie that if you want to just see, it's again to me it's about disappointment with work, is the movie Joe versus the Volcano. It's a silly little movie. It's really fun. It has Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan in it, and again, Tom Hanks, his job is terrible. And so it's meaningless, and it's just they have a great way of portraying that. And so that would be another movie that if you just want to watch it for enjoyment, it is highly recommended. So let's talk about generativity versus stagnation. This is Erickson's stage. Let's watch this quick video. if you haven't seen Up, totally worth it's totally worth it. I love that clip though. Not only do they show really their lifetime together without any words, but they're showing generativity. They're continually working towards something and they're moving forward, even when the things they think they're working towards, like at one point you see that they're working towards having children. And then that dream gets taken away from them. They're able to go back to another dream, their dream of travel, and continue to work towards that. And of course, it keeps on kind of getting postponed because life happens. But it's just a great idea of generativity. Are we working towards something? Are we making a difference in our community? Are we making progress in our life, or are we feeling stuck? Are we feeling stuck and not going anywhere? Because that's a really yucky place to feel. So, and that goes right along actually with midlife crisis. Gender issues that take place during this time. Let's move my little picture up here. Okay. Gender issues. The status of women actually increase at midlife. The kids leave the house if you have kids, and we have a rise in our freedom, our authority, and our well-being. We also usually have a change of status within the family. It goes from being the, the gopher and the taxi driver, to having actually some authority. Like, we have some wisdom to share, and our kids might come to us for advice at this stage. Family relationships change. You now have adult children a lot of times by your mid-40s to late 40s or even early 50s. But your parents are still alive, so you're still somebody's child, and they're entering their older years where you're going to have to start taking care of them. And then you might also start having grandchildren. So there's just a lot going on in family relationships. Ooh, here's a good one. Love and sexuality. How does that change? Marriage and midlife. Basically, there's an increase in satisfaction during this time, partly because the kids have left the nest. There's the freedom to, it's almost like being newlyweds again, but now you know each other much better. And so about 25% of couples do get divorces after empty nest. In remarriage, it's kind of an interesting statistic. 99.99% of men get remarried, but only 33.33% of women do. Of course, not everybody takes the path of marriage and children. Some people remain single for their lives. We also have the LGBTQ community that, again, they now can get married legally, but they also may take different paths. There is a cultural impact on our sexuality and our sex lives during this time that we just need to be aware of. Okay, that is actually it for this lecture. Again, don't forget, if you want to do extra credit, you can. Hold that thought really. I needed to check for what your incentive word was because I had forgotten it. I don't know how I could forget this, but your incentive word for listening to me and watching this whole thing is colonoscopy. Colonoscopy. So again, check out the modules for this week and make sure you get it all done and in on time. And we will see you soon, okay?